For many, Eliza Carthy is at the forefront of a revival in English traditional music. Part of a legendary musical dynasty, Eliza has been on the road since her teens, mixing genres as disparate as music hall, tango and even drum and bass. Twice nominated for the Mercury Music Prize, Eliza has brought this kind of music to a new generation.
To take something that everyone's familiar with and to suddenly give it another depth, another powerful sensibility, that really, I think that's a great strength.
The way that she performs, you really are able to kind of see through her to the music and the words. The song is always kind of bigger than the singer.
A lot of the older folk bands tend to kind of concentrate on the playing. Fair enough, you know. I mean, and it's not like a classical recital, but it has, you know, you listen to the music and that's all you're getting. Whereas Eliza, it just looked like it kind of was a physical thing that had taken her over.
Are they pop songs or are they folk songs because of where she comes from? I think she would tell you they're part of the same thing.
Each generation has their own influences. It's how tradition goes on, it's how it marches on. The music itself, you can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't mind, it's very forgiving.
Norma was singing up until 2 weeks before Eliza was born. All that racket going on upstairs, he's doomed always to be a musician. No, what a musician too.
Eliza is recording her new album at her home in the Scottish borders, 20 miles south of Edinburgh.
We started making this album in 2002. I was signed to Warner Brothers for about 3 years, and basically I hadn't really thought about making a songwriting album before that point, just because I'd been working with the traditional material.
Eliza's music relies on the freedom to experiment with musical styles. When she's not on the road, the calm of her remote home gives her the space to write new material.
There's a really strong musical community out here. You know, it's all people like us. There's just music all around here. The guy that fixes our boilerplate on the album, you know, is an amazing jazz bass player, Tom Line. He comes by, checks on the central heating, and then just bangs a few tracks down for us. On the dark streets of a winter city, he showed me his big love to my face. By the time spring came, I was still ripe and pretty. And there was another big girl in kind of been a little bit of a not very well-kept secret that we've been writing this album for like 6 years. Just, you know, it's gone through lots and lots of different incarnations, but it's always been called the same thing.
Dreams of Breathing Underwater, her new album, is partly about Eliza's time with a major record label.
I really don't belong on a major label at all, and I totally signed to a major label right at the time when everybody was just starting their little cottage industries and everything. It's nice to be back with Topic Records again, it's nice to be back with an indie again and everything, and yeah, self-determination rocks.
Eliza Carthy has returned to her home in the Borders to record a new album of original songs.
Hopeless dreams, when once the kitchen held it all, now it seems it's all in vain, and the misty morning's coming round and knocking again.
Much of Eliza's work is firmly rooted in English traditional music. For her, ensuring the survival of this tradition is not a passive process.
It's a strange idea to imagine that Englishness could just be one thing. It really isn't. It's multifaceted, and that's what I love about it.
In the 60s with the British folk revival, there was a moment where people tried to set it in stone and say, this is what folk music is, and kind of preserve it. And Ewan MacColl had this thing where you couldn't sing a Scottish song if you were English, and you couldn't sing an English song if you were Welsh. I think it was an attempt to kind of freeze it. And in a way, that's understandable, because at that moment in time, there was, you know, amplified rock and roll happening and a massive kind of cross-cultural exchange all over the world. But it's kind of unnatural. And I think it's unnatural to say, this is what this is, and we stop it at this point.
For anybody who knows and understands folk music, it's kind of a constantly evolving thing. Not only with new music that's produced, but with new arrangements and kind of, you know, the archaeological digs of finding old tunes and putting your own arrangements on them and taking it forward.
I want to be able to watch the X Factor and go, oh, yeah, okay. And then I want to be able to go to Sheffield and sing Christmas carols with 200 other people in a pub, you know, and know that it's part of the same thing.
While the Scottish, Irish and Welsh held on to their national identities, the creation of the British Empire had a complicated effect on what it meant to be English.
English folk music had to fight quite a difficult corner, because I think that during the 80s, kind of folk music came to mean kind of Celtic music, and that meant a very specific Irish sort of music. Also, all the cultures that we oppressed, right, the Scots, the Irish, whatever, the music becomes really a definite part of their identity that they have to hold on to, because their identity is being taken away from them. Whereas I think, because the English as a race were always kind of able to reach out to other places and take what they wanted, there wasn't as much at stake in defending our identity. And I think music is tied up with identity. But you have to be really careful about that, because the English identity changes and evolves. It's always been a country where lots of different cultures have passed through. And I think what's been really good about Eliza's music is she is able to take on board the different influences that have come over. It's much more like a Billy Bragg idea of what a national music should be than it is a Tory party political conference soundtrack.
I think it's artists like Eliza who've kind of, you know, got all that kind of folk credibility but want to do something with it and take that knowledge and meld it with other people's knowledge that's quite fascinating.
I think she has great respect for the tradition, but also a healthy disrespect for it too.
Eliza's healthy disrespect resulted in her 1998 album Red Rice, which contained a mixture of sampled beats and drum and bass rhythms. The folk establishment was outraged.
It was quite an interesting time because it's always difficult to know how the hardcore folkies are going to take it. But, you know, it's bringing it to new eras and new generations, really.
I was trying so many different things with the traditional material. I was using the traditional material as a template and then just trying loads of different stuff with that, different lineups, different sounds, acoustic stuff, really organic stuff, and using sampled beats. I've tried all of these different things with traditional material and it just gives you ideas, you know.
When she uses a program beat, it's only appropriate in the same as using clog dancing for a rhythm was. It doesn't feel like they're desperate attempts to appeal.
We would try and do what came naturally, you know. It wasn't a case of trying to shoehorn a ballad into a you know, like a 4x4 type of a beat or anything like that. It wasn't like that. It was just we would sit and we would think about what came naturally, and then we would build these arrangements around that. And I got my material from all over the place. I still do. Right, we've got a song by Brilly Bragg for you now. Brilly Bragg, that was easy for me to say. This, I don't really know what this is about. It's kind of a love song, and I did ask him. And he said it was about humanity. Which doesn't really narrow it down.
Eliza took not a throwaway song, but a song that's perhaps most memorable for its opening line, you know. He was trapped in a haircut he no longer believed in. You know, I mean, which is a lovely line, isn't it? And I'm very, very proud of it. But I wouldn't say it's one song that people are always asking me to play, apart from people with bad haircuts. And she picked it up and took it to another place.
He was trapped in a court he no longer believed in. She says, I'm a teacher here. I teach the children. And he wondered to himself there and then all the things he could learn from her. The great because yonder comes the morning.
Eliza was born and brought up near Robin Hood's Bay, North Yorkshire, It's a place she still calls home and comes back to whenever possible.
I do love being here. It's very important. This house especially is a real hub for everybody. I've been on the road for more than half of my life now. I don't get tired of it when it all works right, but I can't mess around with it anymore. I'm not just like, I can't just fling my clothes in a suitcase and be away from anywhere safe for 6 months without it really affecting me these days. Sometimes it's just nice to come home and have a cuddle from your mum, you know?
Eliza's dad, Martin Carthy, has been a figurehead of the English folk scene for over 40 years. He has influenced some of the great American songwriters like Bob Dylan and Paul Simon.
Martin was part of that generation who learned all the Lonnie Donegan songs, which were basically old folk songs. And when Lennon and McCartney went off to follow Chuck Berry, Carthy stayed true to the folk aspect and followed off the folk tradition to become the definitive English 60s revival folk singer and guitar player. You know, I had a conversation once with Johnny Marr where he said to me, all my guitar licks are just Martin Carthy sped up. I told Martin this next time I saw him. He said, oh, that's great. Who's Johnny Marr?
Martin was honoured for his virtuoso playing and tunings by having a special signature instrument designed for him by the American guitar maker C.F. Martin. In 1998, the Queen got into folk music too and gave him an MBE. The guitar he's playing here is a tailor-made copy of his original and much-loved first Martin.
I bought a Martin guitar in 1963 and I bought it for 60 guineas. I'd just done my first ever television show and had some money in the bank. And I went into Sound City with my brand new checkbook and said, have you got a round hole acoustic guitar, second hand? And the guy handed me, it's Martin 0018. And I sat down and this guitar just snuggled into me. Instruments talk to you, I tell you, if they like you and if you're going to like them. And I must have sat and played for about 45 minutes, just playing this guitar. And I sat up and I said, I really want to buy this, but I haven't got enough money. And he said, write me 2 checks. I had that guitar for 39 years. I did just about every gig I did. I've always blamed Eliza for this, and I'm sure I've always given Eliza credit for this because she said in various interviews, he's got this lovely old guitar, won't somebody please buy him a new one? Because it was so hard to tune sometimes. It's the old original. Still a lovely guitar.
Like Martin's guitars, Eliza's instruments are the tools of her trade. Tim Phillips has made her fiddles since she was 17.
When I first met Eliza was about 2 years after I started violin making, and I was doing a festival in Newtown here, a local folk festival, and Eliza turned up on my stand. She was about 17, and Eliza really took a fancy to one of my fiddles. And I just felt, whoa, this could be good, Tim, because I was only in my second year. I just had a couple of fiddles which were sort of acceptable, and I felt there was, it was important really to see if I could get Eliza playing one of my fiddles. She really loved it, but she didn't have any money. We came to an agreement that Eliza would buy the fiddle from me for £1. It was really good because it meant I could say to all these people coming up to me saying, hey Tim, have you sold a fiddle yet? I could say, yes, I've sold one to Eliza. And she could say to people, look, I've bought a fiddle from Tim. She performed with it later that day on stage at Newtown, and that was the first time that one of my fiddles had been on stage being used. That was really thrilling. So that's how it happened, and after that then she bought a number of other ones and has used them ever since.
I have this one, I have a round-bodied one which has no corners on it, And I also have an octave violin, which is like a violin but an octave below.
Marianne Faithful sings a song about a boy who's like the rain. And look, that's you. When you first appeared, you brought me flowers every day. Now where are you? No one's saying that.
The style of violins these days is very much as it was in Stradd's time, which is four corners, traditional scroll, brown. I just felt when I started making violins that there was, no need for it to stay like that, really. And so had some fun developing some different shapes.
Then exactly 2 tears I did cry, one for each line.
I make stuff according to tradition and using traditional ingredients, but I'm very happy and enjoy making it look different, sound different, feel different. I suppose, in a way, perhaps that Eliza does with her music. And she'll take tradition and she will use it and modify it in a way that she feels is interesting. But she's always honest to the tradition within that.
See you in the mirror, you are laughing at your looks. They take up your time, right, honey, you. Life sings funny songs and will caress your golden head, and I did too. You can curse me for the fool that I am still. Oh, where are you? It feels as though you will. How the rain came down, not outside but inside. Then exactly 2 tears I did cry. How the rain came down, not outside but inside. And then exactly 2 tears I did cry. One night sad and languid, I went to my...
Like all musicians, Eliza Carthy spends the majority of her time on the road.
She does this really funny thing. She's always done it, of getting to a hotel room and you'd be in the Travelodge one night and then you'd be in the, whatever it is, on the motorway the next night. And she'll always get all of her stuff out. Even though we'll be there for one night, she'll get all of her bits out. Put all of her shampoos and little hair clips and her funny little creatures that she carries around with her. I think that's her way of trying to make some sort of environment and home feeling for herself.
Eliza grew up in a home full of musicians. Her father, Martin, is only part of the musical dynasty she's from. Norma, her mother, is one of the pioneers of English traditional music. Along with sister Lal, brother Mike and cousin John, Norma was part of one of the best-known singing groups of the 1960s.
They sing in folk clubs all over the country. They travel around in an old van. They positively shun the limelight. These are the Watersons, a very important part of the revival of traditional British music.
We had never ever intended that should be our career, really. We just fell into it. It was a complete accident. Mostly that was our hobby, mostly that was our love, and we just wanted to learn about this wonderful music that was ours and teach it to other people.
Singing's always been fun. That was the beginning of the end as far as we were concerned, singing and travelling and earning not a great deal of money. We were doing what we wanted to do. We're thoroughly enjoying ourselves singing, which seems to be our life.
The Watersons were perhaps the premier a cappella vocal group of the folk revival.
Sing, whoa, lads, sing, whoa, drive on, lads, drive on. Who wouldn't be for all the world a jolly wagoner?
The three Waterson children were orphans, and they were from a gypsy background, and they lived up in sort of Yorkshire, Kingston upon Hull, that way. And they just had this great fund of songs that they sang in these beautiful sort of chiming harmonies.
The one thing that the Watersons are, above all else, is they're intuitive musicians. And if you learn intuition in music, then you can sing with the Watersons. I remember feeling that the very first time I heard the three of them sing. I went up to Hull to sing, and that's when I first met Norma. And that's a story too. It's love at first sight. But they then came down to London and they sang at the Troubadour, and I introduced them, and they stood up and they sang 70, and my jaw hit the ground. It just, there was nothing like them around at that time, nothing.
Sing, whoa, my lads, sing, whoa, drive on, my lads, drive on. Who wouldn't be for all the world a jolly wagoner?
Everyone has a soundtrack to their childhood, you know, me and my cousins and my family and my aunties and my uncles and everything, and the soundtrack to that is actually the sound of my family singing, you know, my family singing particular songs as well.
Three children, Norma, Lal and Mike, each one of them musically a giant. Mike writes the most fabulous songs of a narrative variety. Lal used to write the most fabulous songs of a lyrical variety. Norma's written one or two things, but she's a singer who can sing absolutely anything. And she's passed that on to Eliza.
I love making something just out of nothing. I love that. When you have the total freedom to do whatever you want, you know, you got a studio full of toys, then it's fantastic. I love going in with 2 or 3 lines in my head and making a complete song, you know. And then I love working on something in my head for months and months and months and months. Like, I mean, anybody that writes will tell you sometimes it comes out all in one go, and then sometimes it comes out in lots of disparate ideas that one day you'll just be looking through your notebook and you'll just go, why did I never see that these things were exactly the same thing, that they're talking about the same thing, and you can put those things together and make them, you know, into a cohesive song. That happens a lot as well, you know, because you do return to personal themes, you return to things that you just dwell on. The things that you dwell on are always the same at the end of the day. So sometimes you can have some things that you've written like a year apart, a verse here and a verse there, and you suddenly realise that they're perfect for each other as verses, or one of them's perfect for the chorus, and that kind of thing. I'm like little scraps of paper, you know, little lines in my head.
She's always written poetry. She always wrote. I mean, she would, you know, when she was 8 or 9, she used to write really pretty stuff. She writes very much like her auntie Lal.
Lal Waterson, Eliza's aunt, is one of the great English songwriters. In 1998, Lal died of cancer aged 55.
Sleeping in my bed.
Lal Waters, I think, was one of the greatest songwriters this country has produced in the last 50 years. She wrote some amazing songs that seemed to have nothing to do with any other songwriter. It seemed to come from nowhere except her own imagination, a very fertile imagination, and, again, rooted in the countryside, the geography of Yorkshire.
Rain pours and the wind roars. All the folks are indoors. We came through a ford, riding over the moors. Fine flying sparrow, fine, fine horse.
Her songs were not particularly about one thing. She wrote several songs with bits of, bits about the sea, bits about the weather and things like that. Her songs were quite obscure.
Shades of yellow, shades of green.
And people used to say, what does that mean? And she just said, does it have to mean anything? Bloody annoying.
Sparrow, fine, fine horseman. Sleeping in my bed, strange thoughts are running through my head, and I dreamed you were playing with my hair. Fine flying sparrow, fine, fine horseman. When it was our bedtime, if Mike and Norma and they'd come round and sing in the front room, and we used to sneak down and sit at the bottom of the stairs and listen. And we had a few sing-songs here, and my kids were sat at the bottom of the stairs sneaking and listening too, so it was a rite of passage.
The thing about Eliza with regards to the Watersons is you've got to remember, none of the Watersons played violin. And Eliza's violin playing and what she does with it and how she pitches it and where it begins and ends is a marvel to me, because it never begins where I think it's going to begin, it never goes where I think it's going to go, and it never ends where I expect it's going to end.
I always remember just one time, there's a song of hers that just, every time she does it, well, there's a few songs of hers that do that to me, but there's one in particular because it was the first one that completely blew me out of my chair. It seemed to have come from nowhere, and of course it hadn't. She'd been working on it. It's a thing called A Maid Lamenting. It's an astonishing piece of playing and singing. And she sings it once in a while. When we did a gig together and Norma couldn't do it, she said, "What's that doing?" I said, "Maid Lamenting. I haven't done it for ages, don't care." So she did it. And it's just utterly riveting, and I will never forget the first time she did it in public. It was at a festival, just a little village festival just south of Bristol, and I can't remember the name of the place. Delightful place, and there was this lovely old bloke who was looking after us, and he sat in the front row when we were doing the gig, and he really adored Liza, and he was a lovely old man. And he sat there, and she picked up the fiddle, and she went to play by herself, and you could see him set back in his chair and think, "Oh, she's my favourite, and now she's going to sing me a song." He sat back, and she sang this song, and it went straight to his heart. You could see him; it completely broke him up. He was absolutely thunderstruck, this woman, and so were Norma and I. She is an extraordinary musician, and she's got a way of going straight to the heart of something, just like her mum.
Yeah, no one. I'll chat with you. Can you do same as last time?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't do 2 tiers?
Yeah, well, I think we should actually have a go at 2 tiers tonight, to be honest. It's, yeah, no, I'd like to do it.
After travelling 200 miles from North London, Eliza is back in Yorkshire at Leeds City Varieties, one of England's oldest music halls.
see her play live, the physicality of her playing, like she's stomping the floor while she's playing, and she's just striding the stage like she's playing lead guitar, whirling around like a Yorkshire dervish.
She's a great singer, she's a great fiddle player. She's got a great bunch of friends around her who form groups, you know. It's a continuation of us, but her way is probably a little bit faster than I would like it, basically because the lungs are buggered.
When I saw Eliza play the fiddle and she was really kind of blazing away at it, and you think, I hadn't seen that much. Certainly I hadn't seen many women doing it. And again, I think that it sort of takes the instrument and the tradition forward to a whole new generation. There are people, I think particularly when you're young, you have energy, and it's like natural if you get on a stage with excitement and energy. It's natural to move. It's natural to kind of want to stand up and give it some, you know.
As they were swinging along together, he then learned to heard it say, I gave you poison all in your liquor, all for to take your sweet life away. And I have drunk all the same, my jewel, or to die as well as thee. Now in each other's arms let's die. Young men, be aware of jealousy. As I passed by a willow tree, that willow leaf blew down on me. Well, I picked it up, it would not break. I passed my love, he would not speak.
I think that why she's an artist is because you get the feeling that she would do what she does, whether there was an audience for it or not. She's clearly someone that loves that music and is driven by it. People from the English folk tradition are really excited to have as persuasive an advocate as Eliza Carthy arguing the case for English folk music. But I think that that's kind of secondary to her as an artist. She just feels driven to create.
Oh, I wished your bosom were a glass, so I could view it through and through, or just to view the secrets of your heart. can't love too.
Willow Tree is a version of a song Eliza found on an old Topic Records compilation of English folk tunes.
What has happened over the years is it's gone down from father to son and mother to daughter, all the way down through the years, changed. You know, somebody heard it in, I don't know, Norwich and went off and lived to Leeds, took the song with them, and so you get a different version. You get, you know, and this is how all the different versions arrive, because people don't remember them exactly right.
In 1965, an elderly woman named May Bradley sang Willow Tree in a pub called the Blue Boar.
As I pass by a willow tree, that willow leaves
Sings as low as I do.
By reinterpreting this old song, Eliza has brought May Bradley and her world back to life, as vividly as any photograph or memento.
I've listened to certain songs all my life, and she will get the song and she will sing it, and she puts something into it that you think, oh God, why didn't I see that? You know, oh yes, that's right, it's right.
When I listened to it, I could really hear that sort of 30s, 40s kind of swing thing in there. The tune's still really different, isn't it?
If I approach a song, the first thing that I do is try and find a traditional singer who sings that song. I want to know what they do with it. I want to hear how they feel. And the only way you're going to do that is by hearing a traditional singer.
The internet has made finding hidden gems like this easier than ever before. But without musicians like Eliza Carthy to sing them, a part of English heritage would disappear forever.
Oh, give me back to the one I love. Oh, give it back to me. If I only had that one I want, I'd be happy more, I'd be. My love.
I think Eliza is really good at taking old songs by the horns and dragging them to another place where you hadn't thought about them.
These songs were originally written by somebody, the idea of the song. If we don't sing them and if we don't do anything with them, it won't be there, which is a really, it's a big shame and a sad thing.
As Eliza's dad, Martin Carthy, is very fond of saying, you know, the worst thing you can do with a traditional song is to ignore it and not play it. And I think that's spot on.
If I only had that one I love, how happy.
For more information about how you can get free music downloads and exclusive My Music video content, visit 5.tv/culture.